All right, let's talk about the altcoin market. On the surface, it looks, well, kind of boring right now, right? But if you dig just a little deeper, the data is telling a completely different story. So today, we're going to uncover the bullish signals that pretty much everyone else is missing.
So yeah, it's been suspiciously quiet. But there's a thing you gotta know about crypto. This kind of silence, it isn't always a bad thing. In fact, it's often the deep breath the market takes right before a huge, explosive move. The real question, of course, is which way is it gonna go? Okay, so first up, let's dive into this suspicious silence. We're gonna put on our detective hats here and look at the actual on-chain evidence to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes, while the price charts are just flatlining. And here is our first major clue. Right now, Bitcoin is dominating the scene, holding over half the entire market cap. But what's really interesting is that the pros, the seasoned traders, they don't see this as a bad thing. They see it as a coiled spring. They are glued to this number, just waiting for it to dip, because that's the classic signal that a wave of cash is about to flood into the altcoin market. Okay, so where do we look for the next clues? We look to the giants. If a big market-wide move is brewing, you can bet the first signs are going to show up in Ethereum and Solana. They're kind of like the canaries in the coal mine for the whole altcoin space. So, clue number one comes from the big boss itself, Ethereum. Now, I know what you're thinking. The price looks like it's stuck in mud, right? But if you look at what's happening on the network, it's telling a totally different story, one of quiet confidence and a whole lot of preparation. So let's break down the evidence. First off, the long-term holders, they're buying more, not selling. That's huge. Gas fees are low, which means we're not seeing a ton of retail panic clogging things up. And at the same time, staking ratios are going up. That's a massive vote of confidence for the long term. This is not what a weak market looks like, folks. This is a market getting ready to spring. So what's the magic number for ETH? It's $2,800, and that's not just some random price point. It's a massive psychological and technical wall. If we see a strong, decisive break above that level, well, that could be the starting gun for that huge capital rotation into alts we've been talking about.
All right, moving on to our second major clue, Solana. Man, after a pretty rough patch, Solana isn't just recovering, it's actually starting to outperform Bitcoin. And that is a classic early sign that investors are getting bold again, looking to place bets on things that aren't just Bitcoin.
And the data totally backs this up. The network's been rock solid for over 90 days now, which is just crucial for rebuilding trust. Transaction volume, it's surging. And its performance against BTC just proves that investors are seeing Solana as a leader again. You can feel it. The confidence is coming back.
And for Solana, the number to watch is $190. If it can clear that hurdle, that's when the momentum traders pile in. The folks who wait for proof that the trend is real before they jump on board. A break above 190 could trigger a really fast, really sharp move up.
Okay, so we've talked about the big dogs, but there's another layer to this whole story. We need to look at the projects that aren't making headlines, the ones flying under the radar, but showing really similar signs of strength. These are what we call the quiet accumulators.
Let's take Cardano and Avalanche, for example. The on-chain data is showing a ton of buying from mid-sized wallets. Now, why should you care about that? Well, because historically, these are the wallets that start buying right before the big institutions move in. For Cardano, the level to watch is 58 cents. For Avalanche, it's all about holding that $27 support to keep the good vibes going.
And honestly, this is the key takeaway right here. The fact that nobody's talking about them is the signal. These stealth rallies, they don't start with a bang. They start in silence, when everyone's looking the other way. The fact that these projects are building such a strong foundation without all the hype, man, that's just incredibly bullish.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second. We've looked at charts, we've looked at data, but now let's talk about people. Because understanding market psychology right now is every bit as important as the technicals. And there's this really fascinating split happening. It's what we call a market divergence. Basically, it's when two different groups of investors are doing the complete opposite of each other. So right now, you have the average retail trader who's feeling kind of neutral, maybe even a little bored or scared, but at the exact same time, the big institutional-sized wallets, they are quietly buying everything they can get their hands on.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look at that. Retail sentiment is way down here, in the dumps.
cautious. Meanwhile, institutional accumulation is through the roof. This is the classic smart money move, getting into position while the crowd is still sitting on the sidelines, waiting. That gap between them, that's usually where the biggest opportunities are hiding.
Which brings us to a really crucial point. These massive altcoin runs, they don't start with a Super Bowl commercial or some flashy headline. Nope. They start with patient, quiet buying, slowly building up steam under the surface until, boom, the market is finally ready to take off.
All right, so we've looked at the evidence, we've identified the key players, we've decoded the psychology. Let's put it all together, let's form a verdict. Here is exactly what you need to be watching for to know when the next wave is about to hit.
Let's keep this super simple. There are just 3 triggers you need to watch. Number 1, Bitcoin dominance needs to start a clear downtrend, falling below 52%. Number 2, Ethereum needs to smash through that $2,800 level and stay above it. And number 3, you want to see a big surge in trading volume across the whole altcoin market. If you see all 3 of those things happening around the same time, that's your confirmation. And I want to leave you with this one last thought from our source material because it's so important. Preparation is absolutely everything. When these breakouts happen, they happen fast. These quiet, stealth rallies can go parabolic almost overnight. And by the time it's obvious to everybody, well, the best part of the move is usually already over.
So the takeaway here is that the charts are whispering things that the headlines aren't shouting yet. All the data points to the foundation for the next big wave being built as we speak, right here in the quiet. So the only question that's left is, are you paying attention?